If you do business and management at IB level, then the CUEGIS essay is probably one of your nightmares. It was for me as a student, but then little by little I developed a system which enabled me to score 17 plus points on all of my essays. And I thought that I might explain to you how I did it in order to enable you to score those kind of points on the CUEGIS essay. So basically the CUEGIS essay is a mandatory essay for all business and management students. It is written in section C of paper 2. And you will have the choice between 3 different CUEGIS questions. You have to choose one. And a question will be about 2 of the CUEGIS concepts, which are culture, change, ethics, globalization, innovation, and strategy. Strategy can be further divided into human resource strategy, marketing strategy, finance strategy, and operation strategy, or strategy in general. And the question will start with, I quote, with reference to a real-life organization, discuss the impact of X and X concept. And this implies that you need to have a lot of knowledge about a specific real-life business before going into the exam. And this is what makes the CUEGIS essay especially challenging. So to do well in the CUEGIS essay, it is essential that you understand the criteria on which you will be assessed. So I'm going to give you a breakdown of each criteria, explaining how to score points on each of them. Each criteria is scored out of 4 points, remember that. So criteria A is knowledge and understanding. And this is a very straightforward criteria. It tests whether you understand and to what extent you understand the concepts that are discussed in a question. For example, if a question is about the impact of culture on marketing strategy, then the examiner will look at to what extent you understand the concept of culture and marketing strategy. It's very important that you start your essay, so in the introduction, you start with a very solid, well-developed and in-depth definition of the concept that you will be talking about in your essay, and you need to develop on the concept on each of the points that you make. So criteria B is application, and this tests whether you can apply the theories and the concepts, the ideas and the concepts, you can apply it to in the context of the real life organization that you're talking about. So this criteria really tests if you have a lot of knowledge about the business that you will be discussing in your essay. And because of that, it is really important that you do a lot of research and you do all your homework and you understand all the aspects of the business. And I will talk about the research process for the CUEGIS essay later on in this video. Criteria C, reason and argument. So basically, for each of the points that you make in your CUEGIS essay, in your bodies, for each of the points you make, you need to have a balanced judgment, and you need to look at every point from 2 perspectives. For example, if you're talking about a specific strategy, you might want to talk about the positive aspects of the strategy, so the positive impacts that this strategy had on the business, and also the negative impact that it had on the business, its limitation, etc. So for every single point you make in an essay, in a CUEGIS essay, it is essential that you have a balanced answer with a positive and negative side, or for and against, so that you score 4 points. Criteria D is the easiest to score in. So criteria D is structure. You need to have and you need to follow a well-defined structure. Your essay needs to have an introduction, a body, which consists of 2 to 4 points, and a conclusion. In your body, each paragraph needs to talk about 1 point. So, like for example, I make a plan, I have an introduction, I have 4 points, and I develop each idea, so each point in 1 paragraph. Furthermore, your paragraphs need to be fit for purpose. So they need to be of regular length. You can't have a paragraph which is of like 250 words and another paragraph in your body which is of like 50 words. So everything needs to be balanced. And one other stupid thing that might sound stupid but that is actually very important is that you leave one line between each of your paragraphs. So between your introduction and the first paragraph in your body, and between the paragraphs in your body and the last paragraph and your conclusion, you need to leave a line so that the examiner sees your structure and that you score 4 points easily in that criteria. The last criteria, criteria E, which is the impact on stakeholders, is probably the most annoying criteria. So you have to talk about how everything that you discuss in your essay, how it impacts on different stakeholders. Stakeholders being anyone which is impacted by the actions of the business. It can be internal stakeholders, so the management, the employees. It can be external stakeholders, the customers, pressure groups, government, banks. It can be anything really. So I suggest that for every point that you make, you talk about one stakeholder group. And the thing with this criteria is that you need to discuss the impact on the stakeholders. If you just state the impact, for example, if you say by applying X strategy, the customers will be more satisfied. Right now, this is just mentioning, it's very superficial. You need to discuss the impact on the stakeholders. And when I say discuss, you need to really talk about the negative and the positive points, the positive and the negative impacts on different stakeholder groups for every point that you make. And the hardest thing about this criteria is not only to discuss, because this is what usually candidates go wrong on. The candidates would usually just state when you have to discuss. This is what I was doing when I started business and management at IB level. I was just stating. It took me a while to understand that you need to discuss, you need to go in depth about the stakeholders. And something else about this criteria is that you need to talk about at least one group stakeholder. So a group stakeholder could be customers, it could be employees. So those are group stakeholders. But you have to mention at least one individual stakeholder. And an individual stakeholder could be like it could be the CEO, it could be a specific employee. For example, when I was writing CUEGIS essays, I spoke about this lady that was suffering from extreme stress. So she was working at McDonald's. She was suffering from extreme stress, and she was interviewed by newspaper. And I read an article about it, and I would mention that in my essays because this would count as an individual stakeholder perspective. So you do have to do a lot of research to be able to find those individual stakeholders as well in order to score 4 points in this criteria. So as you may have guessed by now, the preparation for the CUEGIS essay is very lengthy, and the research process is important and is difficult because you don't have anything in the exam, you don't have any stimulus material, you just have a very, very vague questions, and you have to remember everything you researched, and you do have to research a lot. So it can be overwhelming, but there's a good way to approach this, and I'm gonna explain how I went by it as a student, and it really worked for me, and I'm hoping and I'm pretty sure that it can work for you as well. So the first thing you need to decide is the business that you're gonna research about. So choosing your business, so as a student I went for a very mainstream business. As I mentioned earlier, I worked on McDonald's, and the reason why I chose McDonald's is because there is like so much information available online about them. The McDonald's themselves release like documents or PDFs about their marketing strategy, about their operation strategy, and you have a lot of material about them. You have so many articles, so many interviews, things about ethical concerns, CSR programs. So really, you have so much about them online. And this is I mean, for any big company, you have a lot of information about Apple, about those big companies. And one good option would be to work about the business on which you work for your IA, because you already obviously have in-depth amount of knowledge. So whether you're doing primary research for HL, or if you're doing secondary research for an SLIA, it's a real life organization and you have a lot of knowledge already about this business, and you're allowed to do that. And so when you've chosen the business that you want to work on, the next thing you have to do is start reading and just, you know, finding stuff. And this is like not the hardest thing, but it's the thing that takes the longest amount of time. So what you could do is already go on Google News and type up a QGIS question or a QGIS concept, and you would find loads of articles and read the articles. And what I used to do as a student is I would read something interesting, I would make a summary of the article, and I would type it up. Okay, I was okay with typing things up, and it's a lot quicker. And I would keep the link to the article, so if I had to access it again. And the great thing about summarizing whatever you come up with is that first of all, it helps you extract the important things that you can add in your essays. And another thing that you need to remember is that you will have to retain everything, all of those things. You will have to retain it at the end of those 2 years to be able to go to your to sit in front of this paper, read a question. It can be on anything, and there are loads of combination possible, and you will have to just write an essay about anything. So you need to remember this, and writing summaries is a really good way to retain the information. So this is why I chose to go for summaries. So that's a really good option that I truly believe that you should do as well. And okay, so the next thing I would do is to be able to really make this research process very effective and to optimize it is the following. So after making my summary and after finding this very interesting thing that I could include in my essay, I would take this piece of information and I would link it to as many QGIS concepts as possible. For example, when I was doing my research, I read something about McDonald's developing the customizable burgers. So in some places around the world, in some of their branches, you can go to the restaurant and there's a kind of like tablet, and then you can select whatever you want in your burger. And that was a new strategy that they implemented in some of their branches around the world. Okay, so I have my summary, I have the link to my article, it's all there. And now I'm going to link it to as many QGIS concepts as possible. So first off, we can obviously link this to change, because there is an improvement in technology, and this is what led to the possibility of this development. Okay, and there's also a greater interest in technology by the customers. So it's very important that the business adapts its strategy to market changes and the demand. Okay, so change. Another thing we could link it to is obviously marketing strategy, because it's a brilliant marketing strategy. Customers are more satisfied by the products because it's very much tailored for them. And then there's also going to be the pricing aspect, the promotional aspect when they launch this new strategy. And another thing we can link it to is operation strategy, because McDonald's usually they have very specific menus, and the employees are trained to like do a Big Mac, do a Mac Deluxe, and here they have to adapt their operation, their operation management to whatever the customer wants in the burger, which obviously did involve some changes in the operation management. Then obviously we can link it to innovation, because it's a very innovative concept, and they were amongst the first ones to implement that in the fast food industry. And then we can also link that to culture to a certain extent, because when they launched this strategy, they only launched it in certain culture-loving places around the world. So they launched it in the US, they launched it in Tokyo in Japan. So they didn't launch it everywhere around the world. And around the world, we can talk about globalization, because with the opening up of world economies, they were able to improve research and development, because they were able to get researchers from all around the world to develop the technology for this new strategy. And they would only launch this in certain parts of the world. So I could use this piece of information in an essay about globalization. So see, we can link this one piece of information to change, culture, globalization, marketing strategy, operation strategy, and innovation. So that's 6 concepts we can link it to. So if I had an essay about discuss the impact of globalization on marketing strategy, I could use that. If I had another one about discuss the impact of globalization on innovation, for example, I could use this one idea. And you will see that when you're practicing and when you become more at ease, when you have researched loads of things, you will be using the same ideas over and over again. And this is why it's important, because the less things you have, the easier it is for you to remember it all. And one of the key to be successful in the CUEGIS essay is really to be able to adapt one idea to different CUEGIS concepts. And this is what will make you really successful at the CUEGIS essay. But this really demands a lot of research and a lot of practice. You need to practice a lot. Okay, so what should you do next? You should start, if you're at the beginning of your IB business and management journey, you should start reading articles, and like while you're reading articles, try to write an essay, okay? And start building your portfolio of essay and of research. If you're nearing your exam, the best thing you could do is really take everything you have already and start writing essays. So I made a free guide that you can download by clicking on the link down below that walks you through the process of writing, and especially writing the introduction. The introduction is so important. It lays down the foundation for the rest of your essay. So my free guide will help you understand how to go about the CUEGIS essay, and I understand it is very difficult. I was a student myself, and I know about the types of mistakes that a candidate would make, and the things that are difficult to really grasp. So I've built this guide. It's very student friendly, it's very colorful, in such a way that you will understand. Now, if you want to crack the full CUEGIS code, I suggest that you purchase my full CUEGIS guide for only $11. It is on sales right now, and it is just great. It walks you through every single thing that you have to know about the CUEGIS essay. Everything. I went through it. It was so hard for me because it was a new addition to the syllabus and there weren't any material online, but I figured it out, okay? I figured it out little by little, and I break down my whole system for you. I give you all the definitions of the CUEGIS concepts because it's so important that you have a well-developed definitions. This is an easy way to score points. I give you so many things. I give you a breakdown of all the criteria. I explain to you how to research, what questions to think of while you're researching. I walk you through the writing process, how to make a point, how to make your point balanced. I walk you through every single thing that you need to know. Furthermore, you will have access to 10 of my best essays that all scored 17 plus points out of 20, and most of them scoring like 18 or 19 points, and all of them were marked by qualified IB examiners. And the first one is the one I wrote for my mock exams, and it's fully annotated, and all of the essays were written in exam conditions. And with this guide, in like maybe a few weeks, you will be ready. You will understand everything the examiner will be looking at, and you will understand how to like grab those 17 points in the CUEGIS essay. And if you nail the CUEGIS essay, it's a huge push for your business and management grade. And for those of you who do business and management at higher level, you get like a massive bonus. You will get my business IA that scored 24 out of 25 marks. You get it in my guide. Maybe this on itself is worth more than my guide. It is so important that you do well in your IA. And just go for it. Get my guide. If you're not ready to purchase the full version, I completely understand. Download the free version. This is going to help you so much. The free version is already going to help you so much. It will help you take your grade to another level. Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe to nail the IB, and I'll see you next time.